Surah Al-Anbiya. Those is the only 3 surah in the entire Quran that the title of the surah is not repeated. So your first hint, if you want to focus, especially for the non-Arabic speaking among us, if you want to focus while the Imam is reciting the Quran, your first hint is you're trying to find, is he going to say something related to the title that will give me a little reminder? Now I know what is he reciting, in what part, in what area, in what section, in what surah of the Quran. So that could be your hint, right? So just something to keep in mind. Alhamdulillah, this masjid, Allahumma laka alhamd, lately has been very active, and we've been trying to do a khatira like this, inshallah, when we talked to the administration about it. I see Brother Firdaus is leaving, but I know he's going to come back. We talked about it with the administration to do a khatira every day. I don't think the khatira, a reminder, should be limited to Sunday. I know Saturday got its own program, and I know Sunday there's always a khatira, alhamdulillah, mashallah, but also would like to continue that. Alhamdulillah, if you look at the calendar, or if you know that you are finishing, literally, you are finishing the month of Jamad al-Akhir, and you know what's going to happen after the month of Jamad al-Akhir. After that month, you know, we were approaching the month of Rajab, then the month of Sha'ban, and then, alhamdulillah, inshallah, we'll reach Ramadan. Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, Allahumma ameen. And you feel like that there's a lot of efforts that's been going on when it comes up to not just the efforts of trying to establish a khatira, but I know a sister recommended this, and I know the brothers has been recommending this also, that we feel like, oh, alhamdulillah, at this masjid, there is always iftar on Mondays around the tajweed. And I'm not giving the Indonesian all the support of that particular Monday iftar, but they actually initiated it, and it's been a good sunnah, a good habit to satisfy that Monday's iftar. So we came up with the idea that, hey, well, let's do a Thursday iftar also at the same time. And for some reason, we said, okay, we'll agree, we'll do, inshallah, Thursday iftar starting the month of Rajab. And then 2 weeks ago, for the last 2 Thursdays, subhanallah, still has been iftar here going on, in case you're not aware of it. And I was invited in the last 2 iftars. One of them was not expected. So I'm not going to say Brother Abd Hamid's name, but since he's here, I can say that, just to pick on him. So he said, there is food downstairs. And I said, well, but no one invited me. He said, no, there is food downstairs in iftar. And then he asked me where I'm going, and I said, oh, I'm going to go home and eat. And he said, no, you need to attend the iftar. So, alhamdulillah, I thought it was great, and the iftar was not just food, but Brother Hassan Jazallah Khair and many other people, and Brother Abd Hamid were involved in this, and it just was not expected. While I was eating iftar, I was hungry. It was a fasting day, and that bring you back to the Quran, because this is maybe related to the khatira that we're talking about. So, the Quran talked about hunger, believe it or not. And he talked about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned hunger in many different ways. And it's actually, there is level of hunger. And one is obvious, that's mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Quraysh, in a verse from Surah Quraysh, it says, الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُمْ مِنْ جُوعٍ. الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُمْ مِنْ جُوعٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fed them after hunger, after being hunger. And the definition of hunger in this word, hunger, is having an empty stomach. Just think about it in a simple definition. It's just having an empty stomach. So imagine your beautiful body that made to perfection by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you get hungry, your stomach is sending a signal to your brain to tell your brain, hey, you're hungry. You need some fuel. You need to put some food in. Subhanallah, this is exactly what happens to our body. So the first simplest way that we all go through, regardless how rich you are, how much money you have, regardless if you're rich or poor, we all go through that basic level of being hungry, of getting that stomach empty. Because there is 3 other levels when things get tough. Things get harder. In Surah Al-Hashr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about different level of hunger. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Arabic is going to change here. It's bringing tough words, more than just hunger. So khasasa is, I'm hungry for weeks. Think about that. I have not eaten anything for weeks. Your normal cycle that you go through as a human being of being hungry, when you get that signal from your stomach to your brain, because that stomach is empty, you've been through that cycle, but not for the first time for weeks. And khasasa is also an indicator of being what? Being poor. I don't have money. I don't have access to food. Maybe things around me stuff. Maybe I'm even in a war zone. Think about all of this. Khasasa in Surah Al-Hashr is describing a different level of hunger. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this even a little harder in a different surah. And He decided to describe us a third level of hunger. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, فَمَنِ اضْطَرَّ فِي مَخْمَصَةٍ. Makhmasa is another Arabic, Quranic word. And what we're talking about here, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after listing حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ, it's a taboo. You cannot eat pork. He told you, وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ لَمَنِ اضْطَرَّ فِي مَخْمَصَةٍ. That there's a certain cases where you have to. And a word, makhmasa, in this case, you have not eaten, and your facial look, because you have not eaten for a while, is changing. You know, when you see somebody and you look at them and you say, hey, are you okay? Looks like you lost some weight. Like your face is changing. They're getting a little skinny. So your actual face, your cheekbones start coming out. Your cheeks start getting in. You actually have in your body, there are certain changes. And the word here in makhmasa, that you are not hungry, you are in a starvation status. You're not only hungry, you are starving. You're really that hungry that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a permission to eat, that He told you in the previous ayah that it is a taboo to eat, to include pork. That's haram, as you know, in our deen. So if you reach that level, you're allowed to eat it with a certain condition. You know, غير باغ ولا عاد. That means you're not going to eat beyond what's going to keep you alive, and you don't have the intention to go back and eat that taboo, that food that's forbidden from eating again. So back again to the level of the hunger. Jua, hungry. Khasasa, makhmasa. And then there is a number 4. Number 4 في سورة البلد أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة. And this is the maximum level of hunger. In a day that not only there is no food, there is no water, there is no shade, your condition is going beyond starvation that actually goes that to sickness. Some people, when they're hungry, even if you have an empty stomach, you're puking, you're throwing up. And I don't know, not to discuss anyone, but I don't know if you ever see almost like people throwing up a green juice, the lining of the stomach that they have. Like the stomach is already empty, but that's what's coming out. This is the highest level of hunger. I'm sharing this with you because we had a lot of food this past Thursday. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Ni'mah. I went home and I felt guilty. And some of us will say, it was a great gathering, and Allah it was. But you remember how things are in other parts of the world. And you think about picture of kids that they literally have skin on bones. And I'm sure you've seen those pictures and you know the area that I'm talking about in Gaza, for example. And I also remembered people in Syria in jail that they're being freed. And they've been in jail for some of them for 30, 40, 50 years. And the condition that they've been through and the torturing that they've been through. And then I had to reflect on all of this, and then you say, Alhamdulillah. You feel like we are in a great ni'mah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. But just remember the amount of waste that we have in this country. Wallah, it will feed the whole nation. And I know, and you know what I'm talking about. At the end of each day, from all of those grocery stores and supermarkets, what the type of food or the amount of food in restaurants that being thrown out, Wallah, I know that it will feed the whole nation. I'm sharing this with you because while we're living, alhamdulillah, the blessing, the ni'mah of Allah here in this country, we still cannot forget about things that's going on overseas and what's happening overseas. Inshallah, we will continue our breaking the fast. I think it's been a great get together, inshallah. There is another recommendation that during each iftar that we will have, especially obviously in the month of Rajab and in the month of Sha'ban, that we'll have a quick khatira or a guest speaker or someone will remind us with something, remind us in a way of to bring our deen back in preparation for Ramadan, inshallah. I want to share one last thing that happened to me with you because I thought it's worth sharing because, you know, I remembered when I was eating that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he said, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, what he said, وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. That food is rizq min 'inda Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Kalau kita ini saling mengingatkan,
And من حيث لا يحتسب,
berpikir positif,
the meaning of it is that I didn't see this coming. I was not expecting an invitation.
ya, dengan cara
When someone stop you and say, oh, I got some food for you. This happened to you, to me, to everybody, alhamdulillah, many times. When you get that food with no expectation, when you come in here to the masjid, I'm like, oh, let me pray Maghrib, and I gotta go home and have iftar. I'm fasting with my wife. And then someone tells you, oh, there's food downstairs. We're not leaving, we're staying. Oh, but no one told me about the food, especially when that's someone you feel like, oh, I see this person in the prayer before and the two prayers before, but he's telling me that there is food right now. So that rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One last thing I want to tell you is, no good deed goes unfound. You know, that's an American saying. You know, meaning anything that you do good that actually comes back to you. And sometimes you don't see what's coming back to you. I get to see a lot in my job. I'm the guy who gets invited to people's houses. Sometimes they inviting you to fix their problems. You're not being invited in food in this scenario. So a few weeks ago, I got invited in a domestic violence call. And domestic violence, if you're not aware of that, is the second highest death of police officers in the United States. Why? Because when a man argues with a woman, or when a man argues with his son, or a mother arguing with her daughter, or a husband and wife, and the police comes in, if the police see a sign of physical injury that happened, even if it's not in that day, but within 48 hours, so remember those two conditions, a sign of physical injury that happened within 48 hours, the police, no discretion, have to arrest the primary aggressor. So if a man hit his wife, and I'm sorry to say, to give you the example, and that hit, how that hit was, caused a mark in the wife's face, in the wife's neck, in her arm, in her hand, that is a sign of injury, and the police officer have no discretion. They cannot look in the other side, but they have to arrest the person who caused that harm. Right? So I'm responding to that domestic violence call, and I'm getting into a house, very nice house in the Potomac area, mashallah, and then I see a Quranic verses in the wall of the house. And I said, oh, mashallah, this is a beautiful house. And this one was a verbal, was not physical, alhamdulillah. I just want to give you the example to make a point. I'm finishing up with this, inshallah. So a brother and a sister coming in, and they said, oh, he's been arguing with me, and she's been arguing with him. We're going through divorce. They have 3 children in common. Mashallah, they look wealthy. So, you know, that finance is not the problem in this scenario. And let me share this with you. Is finance a problem? When it comes up to husband and wife? Yes, it's a big problem. If the husband, for example, is not able financially, or able but cheap, this is also a possibility. Or maybe the wife is not satisfied financially, not getting enough money. This has been a common problem that leads to divorce within the Muslim community or outside the Muslim community. That's just a common problem. So just remember that part. But this house, alhamdulillah, everything is great. In a fancy area, the Potomac area, houses there are not cheap, not like Silver Spring, with all respect to Silver Spring and that area. And I talked to the brother and I talked to the sister, and then I remember a verse in the Quran, and I'm talking to them, the Muslim, and I felt like, mashallah, the good Muslim with the Quranic words that you have, that you see framed in the wall. And I said, you remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you And they looked at me with a big question mark in their face. And I said, didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you, وَلَا تَنْسُوا الْفَضْلِ بَيْنَكُمْ? Don't forget the good time, the fadl,
nih misalnya
the good time that you had during the marriage.
bonus gitu.
And this is a reminder to all of us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, when sometimes you say, oh, I never see anything good from
Biasanya
my wife, or I never seen anything good from my husband. Common, you know, common thing to say between a husband and wife. And then when even things gets harder and they're going through divorce, and when you remind them, وَلَا تَنْسُوا الْفَضْلِ بَيْنَكُمْ, and I said, so you looked at me, I said, there was no fadl.
yang dengan nikmatnya
And I don't know the people, remember that part. But I told him, how many kids you said you have again?
lalu Rasulullah SAW pun
He said, 3.
contoh manakala
This is not fadl.
nikmatan yang dia harus syukurin berbeda
3 kids?
artinya dari hal-hal yang tidak kita expect
And you don't consider this a fadl?
sesuai dengan
With
penangkapan
people
Allah.
cannot have kids in some scenario?
Artinya bisa dikategorikan
You're
sebagai
trying, you have 3 children in common, and you don't see a fadl.
mengatakan
That is a bigger problem. I told him this, and I had my backup, because always a backup that comes in. I told you the dangers of the domestic violence was waiting outside. I didn't want him to get in the Muslim house. And I'm sharing this story with you, and I'm about to finish up. 2 days ago, I'm praying Jum'ah at ICCP in the Potomac.
kaidah dalam syukur
And I never seen the brother
yang
of that domestic violence case
itu
at this masjid before.
selalu mensyukuri ada
I see a
kenikmatan
guy coming and tapping me in the shoulder, and he said, you remember me?
atau dengan
And this is the reason, but I'm getting old, I'm sorry, so I can't remember all the faces.
dia tidak
I said, remind me again. And he said, my name is so-and-so, you were in my house 3 weeks ago. And by the way,
kita mengakui kita sebagai hamba Allah yang mana Allah itu kalau Bapak
we
dan
decided to
Ibu
give
semuanya sudah
our marriage a second chance
habis ya.
with a verse that you reminded us with,
Kita ini semua punya
little things that you do, you may not see the results for it.
mempunyai unik
But wallah,
setiap individu secara fisik,
those results will count to you.
secara
You do it regardless. You know, our deen is beautiful.
fisik
Our deen,
akan
subhanallah, Allah does not seek
itu
results.
tulis 50.000 tahun
Allah seek
dalam langit dan bumi.
action from you without expecting results. Allah rewards you even when there is no action, when you have a good niyyah, a good intention of something to do, even if that good niyyah did not verbalize, did not came out,
50.000 tahun
and it may not even change the results.
langit
So, a quick reminder to all of us,
kasih beda
inshallah,
itu mempunyai
whatever you do, even if you don't see it count, wallah, it's counting, and you get angels counting it every day. And even if you don't see those results,
segala tantangan
those results are happening. Continue doing what you're doing, alhamdulillah. Get ready, let's get ready for a best month of Ramadan. And I remind myself, Allahu A'lam, who's going to make it from this crowd till Ramadan or not? I know some of us may not make it. I know we lost some people. If you're talking about the whole Muslim Ummah, from last year till this year, I know some of us may not even make it from now till the month of Ramadan, even if we less than 3 months away, but at least have the intention to have
hal yang kita
a good intention during the month of Ramadan and passing any good deeds that you'd like to pass, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us all. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
rasa keimanan